Welcome to the Shun podcast, where we expose religions that use shunning as a tool to control people. Some quick business before we get started. As you know by now, I offer one-on-one coaching to help people recover from life in these high control groups. I work to help people grieve the past, find themselves, and then find the life that they actually want, not just the one they were given. I'm actually offering something special, so if you want to work with me, now would be a good time. I'm actually offering pay what you want pricing. That's not something you see very often, but I want to work with more people. I want to try to help more people. So, when you look at it, traditional therapy locally is usually, $100 plus per session. Online therapy is usually $80 or more. I typically charge $50 for coaching, which most people find reasonable, but I'm actually letting you decide the price. So the minimum is actually $20, but you decide from there. And by doing so, I'm hoping that I can help more people. So if you're feeling unhappy or stuck, send me an email at shunnedpodcast@gmail.com or reach out through any of the websites that I have, whether it's shunnedpodcast.com, xjwhelp.com, or whatever. And let's start working together. We already lost so much time in these groups. You can certainly do some healing alone, of course. But, when we work together on things, we can often heal a lot faster. And, we can also process things together, challenge perspectives, get new tools, find ways of different ways of looking at things, find acceptance, kind of go through this grieving process together. And in the end, more and more people have been reaching out for help, and seeing people that I work with actually start to find their voice, to make big changes in their lives, to be who they've wanted to be, or to just be proud of who they are. That's the best feeling in the world. Speaking of seeing people become who they are, or be able to speak to who they've been, today we actually have another brave person that's reached out to tell their story as part of the process of healing. It can be very cathartic to share your story with other people, to feel seen, heard, validated. So let's go on a journey with today's guest. As you listen, look for the lessons, look for the ways that maybe your story relates, and maybe you can learn about what has worked for this person, or maybe what hasn't. Maybe it's something that you can pull into your own life. If you were never involved in these groups, I get emails from people that just listen because they find these stories interesting or they find them inspiring. So please help spread the word. These aren't just cult stories. These are human stories. So many of the things that were experienced by the guests of this show are found in other areas of life. So share these episodes and let's help shine a light on the human experience. What's really going on in this world? You never know who it might help. So without further ado, let's go ahead and meet today's guest.
So my name is Aaron. I'm 31 years old. I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I'm shunned.
All right, Aaron. So how'd you come to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
Well, I was indoctrinated. I was born into it. Both my parents, on my dad's side, I was third generation, and my mom's side, I was second generation.
Wow.
I'm not quite sure how my father's parents got into the cult. Story never really was shared to me, but my mom, so both my parents came from a very large family. Both my grandparents had 7 kids on each side.
Oh.
And yeah, so I've got a lot of family members that are still witnesses. My mother, she grew up in a broken home. Her parents divorced when she was a teenager, and she lived a very rebellious lifestyle, I guess you could say. At a very young age, got into drugs and drinking, and kind of flopped back and forth between both parents. And I think she was in her early 20s when her sister, my aunt, started studying. So my aunt on my mom's side, she is the one that basically got my mother and then 2 other of the siblings to join into it and get baptized.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It's not often a sibling.
Right. And of course, with all the kids growing up in a broken home, witnesses prey on that.
Mm-hmm.
and they all fell for it and are still into it to this day.
Wow. Well, you being born in and obviously having that, you have those generations that it goes back. For you, what did it mean growing up as a little Jehovah's Witness? Because it's not like it was just you and even your parents. You had, I hate using it's like the term I think they use, the spiritual heritage or whatever. Like you had other family that was in, and
Yeah.
that creates kind of its own momentum. So how did you feel when you kind of were born in and started to learn about this stuff?
Um, to be honest, I mean, my parents, they were in, but they weren't really aggressive as far as like studying and going to meetings. Um, I kind of remember at a young age never going out in service. I remember going to the meetings 3 times a week, but we never did family study. I think the most spiritual education we got was doing the daily text at dinner, and we wouldn't even discuss it. My dad would just read it, and that was it. So growing up, it never really stuck with me or was significant and meant a lot to me. I, first off, never believed in it.
Hmm.
And I mean, I do remember, especially at a young age, seeing like the Bible storybook and the pictures and being very fearful of Armageddon and stuff like that. But as far as being practicing and like going to meetings and stuff like that, it never interested me. I always loved the days when we didn't go to meetings because my parents were too tired from working that they just didn't want to go. So yeah, I guess it did have an impact on me, and it later on in life, it's still stuck with me. I don't want to jump too far ahead,
Sure.
but when I was disfellowshipped, it took me about, gosh, I would say 5 years to like finally wake up just from being away from the cult.
Yep.
So it definitely did have an impact, but I just never really wanted to pursue or like really be involved with it,
Yeah.
as an organization.
And isn't it amazing? You were away, had to get out of it for 5 years to really start waking up, and you didn't even really believe it. you know,
No.
I mean, when you think about that, it wasn't even something that was deep in your mind and heart necessarily. It was just something that you were kind of enduring,
Mm-hmm.
but yet it still stuck with you like that. And I think that's interesting. It just shows the power that the indoctrination has.
Completely.
For you mentioned the fear being something that stood out. What was the worldview that the religion gave you when you were growing up? How did that fear kind of come into play?
Um, I guess just them always kind of pushing on you that everyone who wasn't a witness is a bad person.
Yeah.
Um, I just remember, so I'm sure you're going to ask this question coming up, but the hall I grew up in, I mean, it was a very large hall. I would say, I think there was at one point close to like 150 publishers.
Ooh, that is big.
So it was very large. A lot of families with children, and I was not only bullied within the Kingdom Hall, but in school too. And so I think at a young age, I mean, I definitely had friends that were witnesses. I'll touch on that later, but I always viewed people that weren't witnesses as good people. And I always thought that they were, you know, better human beings as far as like I don't know, just the way they treated other ones, because witnesses are so judgmental. And so I always kind of lean towards trying to make friends in school that were witnesses.
Wow. So you could see, even at a young age, how judgmental things were. And that drew you to people on the outside who weren't worried, about pissing matches about what color your suit was, or,
Right.
how long your hair was, or whatever. It's interesting for you at such a young age to be able to see that, and to have that humanity really turned on, where you were in tune with the people around you like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and two, so I knew at a very young age, I always get asked this question when I reveal this to people, but I am a gay male. And I remember probably in like third grade, kind of knowing I was different from other people. So I think that had a lot to play on it too,
Yeah.
as far as being who I wanted to be later on in life.
Yeah, and did that make you feel, knowing that, did you feel shame and try to do more in the organization like some people? Or did you maybe go the opposite way and say, well, I just know I can't fit in with this, and maybe that was part of the reason you couldn't buy in?
It was kind of both, honestly. So at a younger age, in my teens, is when I felt that way. But once I got older, into my close to my 20s, is when I was like, oh God, like I cannot do or be who I want to be. Like I need to straighten up my act
Yeah.
and be a true witness and not be a sinner.
Right, right. Yeah. Oh yeah. So, when you were young and you're
Mhm.
feeling all of this, um, how did you feel, at home with your family, whether it was doing family study, well, no, you didn't do family study, but the daily text,
No. Yeah.
just doing the text, or what little you did do, um, how did you feel? Were you into it? Did you kind of feel fraudulent? How did you feel knowing that your family was kind of into this thing and you really weren't?
Sure. I guess, I mean, at that young of an age, you don't really think about it at that time
Yeah.
of how it's going to affect you. But I do want to say, as far as being raised in the cult, I did have a really good childhood. Um, we grew up in a small suburban town in Minnesota, and one of our neighbors who lived close by were another family of witnesses. They had three daughters, one who was the same. No, let's see. They're my sister. So I have an older sister. She's only a year and 9 months apart. And then, so the family had three daughters. The oldest one, who was a year older than my sister, and then the middle daughter was only 2 months from my age, and then they had a younger sister who I think was like 3 years younger. But especially during the summertime, my mom working, this other witness family she was a stay-at-home mom, so in the summertime she babysat us. I mean, it's kind of weird. Like I remember most of my childhood being over there all the time. And I mean, I honestly can't think of any bad part of my childhood as far as them being a part of my life. Like we had so much fun as kids. Like, we spent summers on our bikes, and, being in the small town, you can just go and do whatever you want, not worrying about people not trusting or, so I don't know. I feel like, yeah, at a young age, I had a very great experience with this other witness family, and the two older daughters they are now no longer witnesses, and I'm still very close to them.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, yeah, they're like my sisters. I mean, we talk so much, and as I'll get on later, I'm very fortunate for a lot of people who I grew up with in the Kingdom Hall that I did that are no longer a part of it. either left or were disfellowshipped.
Oh yeah, that's always fortunate when you have other people, that you can have those roots with and reconnect with later on in life. So it does. Yeah, it sounds like you had some good times, and that's awesome. And it probably didn't hurt that you weren't going out in field service all the time.
Right.
You had your Saturday mornings to go, play with your friends or ride your bike or whatever, watch cartoons. So now you alluded to a little bit at school. You were bullied.
Yeah.
So what was your life like growing up at school as a child?
Well, again, being in a suburban town, smaller school, I would say, like, especially within like the grades in middle school, since the classes were so small, we all just got along. It was like the older kids that were bullying me. And I mean, it got so bad to the point to where I, at a young age, was experiencing so much sickness from anxiety of needing to go to school, to where, God, I think it was like grade 4 or 5. I missed like almost 40 days of school, being hospitalized because they didn't know what was going on. And it sucks to know, like, at the time we're in right now, as far as progression with mental illness, or just dealing with instances that happen to us, is where it's like, it's something so simple as my parents just reaching out, being like, oh, what are you experiencing?
Yeah, it's not like it takes a miracle. It's just asking and showing an interest often helps.
Yeah.
Were you having stomach issues?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I still deal with it to this day.
Yep.
But yeah, it was, I mean, they did so many tests and try to figure out, they pretty much narrowed it down to me having an ulcer. But
wow, as a kid.
So I mean, the bullying was so bad in school to where it affected me not going to school and then going to meetings, and then a lot of the kids, because like I said, the hall was very big. I mean, I would say, geez, growing up, there was at least, 20 to 30 kids from the ages of 7 to 18.
Wow.
So there was a lot of children in the hall and teenagers, and a lot of them were elders' kids, which means, I wasn't allowed to hang out with them because my parents weren't very spiritually strong at the time. And they were the ones that picked on me.
Wow. So let me ask you, in school, were you picked on? Was it because of being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, or just in general? I mean, I was bullied relentlessly in school, and it was a lot of both.
Well, here's the weird thing. So it obviously helped that I had the one neighbor friend who was the same age as me. So as far as, like, we were never mistreated as witnesses, because we always had each other to rely on. And up until grade 5, our parents always requested us to have the same teacher in homeroom. Yeah. So they would understand that, but yeah. So in middle school, there was a bunch of other witness children that were upper in grade. So that never really was something that we were looked down upon. I remember one time, even at some pep rally, the school was having.
Oh, you're not supposed to go to those.
No, of course, we're all like in the fucking library playing Oregon Trail, having a blast. And one of my friends, he was like, told my teacher, he's like, oh, I'm a Jehovah's Witness too, because he just didn't want to go to the pep rally. And we all looked, we're like, no, he's not. Like, he's not a witness. Like, you can't just say you're a witness to get out of a pep rally.
The one time that people wanted to be a witness.
Right?
For Oregon Trail.
For Oregon Trail.
That's funny. So it doesn't sound like you were bullied then for witness reasons. It was just normal bullying.
Yeah. and the way I'm sure, you know, again, I was, I would say too, since I was bullied, I didn't have a lot of male friends
Yeah.
growing up. Since having an older sister who was very close to my age, I just remember always doing a lot of stuff with her and her friends, which I'm sure she just loved having a younger brother always tag along. But I mean, a lot of my cousins who were witnesses were males. And I just remember one time that this story popped in my mind a few nights ago. My mom hosted like a girls' party and a boys' party for me and my sister on separate weekends. Just, you know, since we don't celebrate holidays, let's like just get the kids together. And when it was my day for the party, only 2 people showed up from the hall.
Oh, that's
yeah.
brutal.
I'm sure it was like 15 people that were invited.
Yeah.
And the 2 that showed up were my cousins. So it's not like it was ones that really wanted to be there, I'm sure. But
yeah, you might have had more fun at the girls' party with your sister and her friends.
Well,
you know?
I remember hanging out with them, and my mom's like, "You need to go to your room. Like, this is her time to have, you know, a girls." And I'm like, "Well, I know." Like, I knew at that point too. I'm like, "No one's gonna come to my party." But so yeah, it was. I mean, I enjoyed hanging out with the girls, to be honest. I mean,
Sure.
still to this day, I have so many more girlfriends than guy friends. So
Get in where you fit in, right?
exactly.
You know, I mean, wherever it is that you find friends, enjoy it. It's stupid how we segregate those things, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Just be happy with whoever you're happy with hanging out with, and have
Exactly.
friends. So you know, at the Kingdom Hall, obviously you had issues as far as even being bullied by some elders' kids there, or not being allowed to associate as much. But other than that, so you didn't really believe what they were teaching. You weren't super tight with the young people. So for you, how was it at the meetings? Like, was there any redeeming quality there? Did you like, at least was there someone there you got to hang out with? What was your feeling like when you did go to the meetings?
I mean, growing up as a kid, I didn't care because, you know, during the whole meeting, I just wanted to sit and draw. And that was the one thing my parents were actually pretty cool about. I mean, I remember at a young age being able to nap on the floor in the aisle and draw and do whatever I wanted to do. They weren't really those aggressive witness parents that were, you need to sit still and shut up and pay attention. Like, they were pretty lenient, pretty cool about just making me comfortable as a child to not, you know, cause a distraction during the meeting. So I never really paid attention to anything. It was all foreign to me. I didn't care about anything they were discussing, or wasn't retaining any information they were saying.
Man, that's a lot of napping and drawing. That's a lot of hours spent drawing things or napping on the floor. That did you ever just get super bored, or were you pretty easily entertained? I don't know if that's the right word, but
I guess, I mean, I was pretty content.
oh, hey man, that's
with my
awesome.
markers and but it's weird. I do remember, obviously, at a young age, there was this one pioneer sister who was just super outgoing, super sweet, and I don't know if it was because of growing up in a family, like, we were never very affectionate. Like, I think maybe I've heard my mom and dad tell me they love me twice in 31 years. Never hugged, never did any of that. So I just remember growing up, like, when people would try to hug me or kiss me, it like freaked me out, and I'd always like run away. But I just remember this one pioneer sister. She had like she'd always wear this bright red lipstick, and she'd always kiss my cheeks, and I was so happy to have like her lipstick marks on my cheeks.
Oh.
And I remember like at a young age, they asked or wanted to like not interview, but just ask the kids what they wanted to do when they grew up. And I was just so fond of this sister that I was like, I want to be a pioneer just like her. So there were aspects like, of course, I wanted to like run the microphones and do talks on stage, because why was that so appealing to us? Like,
It wasn't appealing to everyone.
I'm
but-
still confused as like, why was that, to be able to do the mics? Like, why was that?
Oh, when you do the mics, you don't have to pay. Like, it gives you something to do. You're sitting there bored all meeting, so it's physical activity. It is awkward, but yeah, it's something to do.
Yeah, so I do remember like wanting to have those privileges and doing stuff in the hall like that.
All right, so how did things progress then as you went into your teenage years and young adulthood?
Okay, where to start with this? So teenage years, again, still not really, studying with my parents, not really growing as a witness and wanting to get baptized, which, they obviously pressure you at a young age.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just kind of remember hanging out with friends and from the hall. I do kind of want to, I said I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to roll back a little bit.
Oh, that's fine.
So I do remember, again, when I was being bullied pretty hard in middle school, and from especially the kids in the Kingdom Hall, I was very close and became really good friends with a lot of kids at school. And I remember my mom, I think she was working third shift at the time. So by the time school got done, she was in bed sleeping and my dad was at work. So I used to always just walk home with a friend from school and hang out at his house. And we got very close, which for me was a huge deal,
Yeah.
to have another male friend at a young age who was interested in the same things. And our friendship was really great. And I just remember on weekends trying to either ask my mom if I could stay the night at his house or if he could come over, and it was always denied because he's not a witness.
Really?
And
That's interesting because they've allowed you to have so much contact, but yet that's too much. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I remember my mom, she'd always wake up, realize I wasn't home and knew where I was, so she'd have to come pick me up at his house. And so I do remember like that time too being happy in life just because I had other people to, share the same interests and have a good friendship. And especially since they weren't witnesses, I could do the things that witnesses weren't allowed to do and watch the movies and TV shows and, just not be in fear of like doing stuff that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Which is so simple and
rare.
Yeah. So now back to later on, it got so bad to the point in school to where I had to be homeschooled.
So where was that, around middle school or?
Yeah, it was the first semester in 7th grade is when I got pulled from school. And I just remember begging and pleading my mom and dad just to please pull me out of school because the bullying was just so terrible and I just couldn't handle it anymore. And luckily at that time, there were 2 other witness families that started homeschooling their children. So they were able to give my mom the information as far as signing me up. And it was kind of great because the one family God, they had four daughters, and another one was my age. So me and her got really close, and I would just go over to their house every day and just do our studies and lessons. And, we would do dumb stuff like go to the zoo for field trips or the Mall of America.
Yeah.
And so it was good. Like, again, at that point, now I'm like, okay, now I have friends in the Kingdom Hall. Again, they're all girls, but who cares? So that was a good thing for me, I think, to leave public school and start to be homeschooled.
Yeah, that's a pivotal moment. That's a big deal.
Yeah, because, so far, right now, so many witnesses, they just start out their children by homeschooling them, which I'm not about. I'm like, you need to send your kids, they need to learn how to respect authority at a young age and not just their parents.
Right.
They need to respect the authority of strangers. So, but yeah, for me at that time, it was a good point in life.
So where did that take you?
So at the time, the one neighborhood girlfriend, she got very involved with like the popular group in school, and we kind of drifted apart. And it wasn't until the one other family that was homeschooling their 4 daughters, they moved away, which was like devastating to me because now I just lost like all my friends.
Yeah.
I don't know how it happened, but the one neighborhood girl my age, we were close to turning 16 because I know we were taking like our permit class and trying to get our driver's license. And we grew very close again. I think it's so funny too, being a 15, 16-year-old male, I got away with so much shit that was like, could have gotten my family's in so much trouble, as far as just having the girls come over and stay the night. Yes, I had an older sister, that can be like, oh, they were just staying with her, but we would just stay up all night and hang out.
But the optics of that.
What's that?
The optics of that don't look good to your average Jehovah's Witness.
Right. But we never like got in trouble for it. We never really cared about being caught about anything. Once we finally did get our driver's license, me and her would like just go to dinner and go to lunch or go to, run to Target. So we would do shit and not even care because it's like, we're friends. Nothing's going to happen. At that age, I knew I was gay, but no one else knew. So I'm like, nothing's going to happen. Trust me. I'm not going to get her pregnant. So me and her got really close, and she then started a relationship with a boy in school and kind of started drifting away. And I just remember kind of seeing it happen. And, she kind of stopped contact with me. And I just remember being so angry, so upset that she could do that at that point to me and to her family and to the congregation. So I will say, I do remember at points in life, when they did announce ones being disfellowshipped, I do remember having that icky feeling, or that kind of like straight up, like you just switch your thinking on this person.
Oh yeah.
Or just how you perceive them as a person, which is so insane. Because it's like, your dear best friend gets disfellowshipped, and part of you is sad, but at the same time you're like, oh geez, like I guess can't talk to them anymore, like, and you just view them as like this evil person.
Yep, like trash.
Yeah, like garbage. And so I just remember feeling that for my friend and just being so upset. And so she ended up I think she was 16 or 17. She left her parents' house and moved in with her boyfriend. And I do remember, though, I would still kind of reach out to her every now and then, like over text message, or, she'd come to the memorial, or there'd be some family situation that would happen to where we ran into each other. And I remember like being really excited to see her because she was never baptized, so she wasn't disfellowshipped. So I just kind of, in that back of my mind, was like, okay, I can still talk to her. Like, I'm not going to get in trouble, really,
Right.
if I make contact. Kind of forgot where I was going with this, but so yeah, I mean, still kind of kept in contact with her. And then the one family that moved away with the 4 daughters, they ended up moving back when I was, I think, 18. And became, very close with them again, which was much needed because at that point didn't really have anybody. Geez, I knew I'd do this. I'm already getting way ahead of myself. I'm just remembering so much stuff.
Sure, it all comes flooding back. So, was there somewhere, I've got to ask, was there somewhere in there, you said something about how you ended up being disfellowshipped or whatever. So, were you baptized at any point in your teenage years?
I was, I didn't get baptized till I was 20.
Oh, okay. All right. So you made it through the teenage years and then got baptized. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Which everyone too, all my friends who are now disfellowshipped, they're like, Aaron, you knew better at that age to not do it. Like you should have been smarter then. Like you were old enough. Come on.
You did all the right things. Why'd you go mess it up?
I know, right? Totally ruined everything.
I'm sure there were reasons.
Okay, so back to before my 15, 16s. So homeschooled with the daughters. So there was this elder in the hall with 3 children, 2 who were older males. And I remember one of the other boys that was homeschooling, we became pretty close. When we would hang out and do schoolwork, it was like us going down to the river and like lighting off fireworks or just shitting around, not even doing work. So we got pretty close, but my dad never liked me hanging out with him because he was bad association, because I don't know why he was marked that way, because he was just a young teenager, and I don't know if he just didn't study his watchtower common enough at the meetings. So too, this is where it got kind of strange, because growing up, not studying, not going out in service, making it to the meetings, is now when my parents are kind of saying, you need to make more of yourself. You need to consider getting baptized. You need to study. You need to do all this stuff to where it's like, you didn't raise me that way.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be a complete 180.
Flip a switch.
I don't think so. So he had told me how the 2 elders' kids were, I guess at the time you could say starting a rumor, but was a true rumor. They were just telling everyone that I was, gay. But, when you're 14, like, that's kind of still devastating. Like, sure. Yes, you're dealing with this. You don't know how to handle it or how to react. So I just remember my parents and his parents that were in a lot of meetings about them starting these rumors, and that really did kind of take a hold as far as how I felt about the witnesses, because that was the first time I think I felt betrayed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a pretty hateful thing to do, with the connotation that they would see that as carrying.
Yeah. And then later on, like, I have some older cousins um, that I looked up to, and they kind of took me under their wing at some times in life, and we got close, and then they kind of left me in the dust and became friends with these two elder boys that, were spreading this hateful shit about me. So that was really hard too for me. I do remember a period of time when I was like 16, 17, just, homeschooled, being alone. Everyone's left me. All my friends are either leaving or moved away. And yeah, I just remember sitting at home all day, just being alone, which was really hard. Um,
Yeah, it seems like you had a lot of social activity
yeah,
until then.
yeah, and that took a huge toll on me because I became very socially awkward. Um, couldn't interact with strangers. Had a hard time meeting people, so it was just like, ugh. That was a pretty low point in my life. So where to pick up from here now? I suppose we can go now. So I'm 18. Um, I'm really close with my friend Danny that we said
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to share her name. She starts dating this one brother who is, I don't know how long he was divorced for, but he moved back to our congregation. And as a group, we started all hanging out together. And I think they got married. She was like 18 or 19.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was going to say, how old was she? I mean, first of all, witnesses getting
No, she
married
was,
young, but
I know she was under 21.
yeah.
So she might have been 19, and I think he was 27. So at that time, that's already like, people are viewing that as like a huge no-no, like the age difference and him being recently divorced. And I do remember when they started dating, my one friend that ended up leaving around that same time when we were 16, 17, we were still close, and he just like treated us like garbage. He hated us. He wouldn't, like, when we'd go out for group, he'd be like, make sure Aaron and Kyla aren't there. So at first I hated this guy. And then once my friend Kyla left, I think my friend Danny kind of had a talk with him, I'm sure, being like, you know what, he's my friend. You need to treat him nice, and you can't not invite him places because I want him there. So we kind of became friends, and at that age, again, too, I just remember kind of looking up to him. Again, I'm now having like an older male friend who, we get along. He was cool. He invited me places. Like, it just kind of meant a lot, our friendship.
Sure.
So they got married, and they built a house together, which during the time I was working construction with my dad. So when I started homeschooling and turned 16, my dad started making me work with him. I don't know why. He's like, oh, well, I graduated when I was close to being 7. So I graduated very early.
Oh, you were one of those who took homeschooling seriously and killed it, huh?
No, I didn't actually. Like I said,
Oh,
I would
really?
just goof off. And so it's kind of funny, the homeschooling program that I was going through, my friend Danny was doing too. So we would just exchange answers. So I would do like the chemistry section, and she would do history because I hated history. And so it was so funny because this homeschooling program was multiple choice. And once you would take the test, they would give you the answers if you got them wrong. So we would just call each other up being like, hey, I finished chemistry. Here's the answers. So it's not because I'm super smart. It's just because I cheated. And I was smart that way as far as learning the ways to work around it.
Yeah. If you put as much effort into learning, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, so 17, I started working with my dad in construction, doing taping and drywall. And that just got to be a lot too for me because, again, here I am, living with my parents, seeing my dad, being with him pretty much 24/7. It just got to be a lot. So, when Danny and her husband got married, they were building a house and me and my dad were working on it. And, actually, I think at that time period, a lot of witnesses, they all built houses on the same street in the same city, which was weird.
Yep. They will do.
Yeah. And so they moved in, and this is where shit gets really strange and weird. So at the time I was 17, and so it was my sister, Danny and her husband, and then 3 of my other friends. We used to go over to Danny's house on the weekends, not every weekend, but maybe a weekend a month. And we would just go there and party. Since her husband was old enough, he'd buy liquor. So I started abusing alcohol and drugs around 17. Definitely.
So you went straight into abusing. Well, I mean, drugs, yeah, but the alcohol as well. Did you have a problem with it right off the bat?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, I think too, the reason why is because every time I'd start drinking around people, they'd be like, oh my gosh, the next day, they're like, Aaron, you're so much fun when you're drunk. You're so funny. So this connotation in my head came about okay, people only like you, or you're a good person, or they want to be around you when you're not in a normal state of mind.
Especially when you've come from such a bullying background or bullied background. Now you have people liking you. It's going to make you want to do that.
Right. So yeah, I started abusing. I mean, I just remember trying so hard every day to try and find ways to get liquor. Or at one point I remember my mom she suffers from a lot of ailments. I mean, she's got diabetes, she's got glaucoma, she's got arthritis. She retired early, and I remember her getting painkillers, on a monthly base. Mm-hmm. And she never used them because she didn't feel good when she would take them. So I had access to painkillers at a young age. And so, yeah, I just, started heavily abusing drugs and alcohol whenever I could get my hands on it. Mm-hmm. And especially too, to have now this friend of mine who's older and able to buy liquor or give it to me when I want. So we'd go over there quite a bit and just party and drink. And things got really weird. I remember myself noticing how the husband was treating my sister and my friends differently. They would kind of not sneak off, but they would just disappear for a while. And I remember one time my sister moved in with another witness girl, and she was throwing a housewarming party, and she asked someone, she's like, oh, I need help setting this up in my bedroom. And he jumped at the opportunity to go help her. And I'm like, you're a married man. Why are you going down to my sister's bedroom to help her fix something? So there was some kind of preconceived notions that was what was going on. So this went on for months, going over there partying, and I remember it was like July 4th, and we were going to go over to Danny's, her mother and father-in-law's, to watch the fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to Wisconsin to pick up fireworks because they're illegal here in Minnesota. And again, funny how it's July 4th and we're setting off fireworks. We don't celebrate holidays, but
Right.
let's blow some shit up.
Look, it's the only time you can get fireworks.
Right.
So you have to
Just
do it. You owe it to yourself.
Just like on Thanksgiving, I remember always going over to my family's and I'm like, well, why are we celebrating? And they're like, well, we're all off of work and turkeys are on sale right now. I'm like,
my mom would say that too.
Okay, turkeys are on sale. I didn't know they were so expensive to begin with.
Oh, yeah. If it wasn't for that, we could never eat turkey.
No, never.
Only chance.
Well, and two, my aunt got one free from her work, so why not?
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So we were over there, or we had plans to go over there July 4th, and a few of my friends were coming back from getting the fireworks in Wisconsin. And I just remember calling and texting everyone all day and getting no response. And I remember getting a text message from Danny saying, everything's about to change. I'm really sorry this is going on. Come to find out her husband was having an affair with my sister and two of our other friends who were sisters. One who was underage. She was, I think she was 14 or 15 at the time. Yeah. Fortunately, my dad and her stepfather, they did go to the authorities. They didn't even, I mean, the elders knew about it, but they were like, we're going to the cops. Like, we don't care what you're going to. So they did report him. He did have to register as a sex offender. And, sorry. I just kind of remember when that's really changed everything in my life. Cause I mean, these were everyone who were close to me, and just losing it all in a second. So myself and God, 2, 4, 5. So it was kind of funny because we all obviously had our judicial committee meetings. I was at the time not baptized, but I was a publisher, so I got publicly reproved. Everyone else got disfellowshipped. And of course, too, you know, they announced everyone at the same night that it happened. So it's kind of like, oh gosh, you know, I can only imagine and wonder what everyone's thinking about us right now.
Now, Danny didn't get caught up in that, did she? She wasn't disfellowshipped, right?
She was disfellowshipped.
She was disfellowshipped too. Wow. All right.
Yeah, I think it was for, I guess, I mean, I don't want to share what she can share if you ever haven't heard, but I don't know if it had to do with the underage drinking or who knows, but, you know, mine was because of drinking, and then, you know, I had a CD case full of R-rated movies, and I just remember because too, Danny's husband was the one to call me out. Like, I had my judicial meeting, and they were like, okay, like at the time they weren't going to publicly, they were going to just privately reproof me. And then I remember a week later, they're like, we need to meet with you again. And I was like, what for? And they're just like, oh, some more stuff came out. So yeah, Danny's husband, like, Aaron has R-rated movies, and just kind of called me out.
If he's going to go down, he's going to take everybody with him.
He took everyone down with him. And I just remember my dad coming into my room being like, you need to show me what you have. And so I like pulled out this huge CD case full of, you know, inappropriate movies like Constantine and The Craft, because I'm obsessed with witches. I think they're phenomenal. And I remember my dad, though, being relieved at the same time. He's like, I thought you were going to take out porn. I'm like, I'm 17, how would I get porn? Like, especially like on DVD format, how would that happen? But, so yeah, everyone got disfellowshipped. My sister had to move back home with us. Danny and her husband moved away to another city 2 hours away. And I just remember that I think that was the hardest thing for me, is because that really, at that time, I remember having a conversation with Danny before we kind of said our goodbyes, was it just kind of really hurt our friendship, as far as to when she did get reinstated, we didn't speak for a long time.
Did you say she moved away with her husband?
Yeah, so they stayed together.
So they stayed together. Okay.
Yeah, so they stayed together. They had two children. They've been apart now for I don't know how long. I can't recall, but yeah, we're closer than ever right now, which is amazing. But yeah, so lost everything. And at that point in my life, that's when I did start trying to become a witness. I was like, okay, I need to shape up my act. I need to start studying. I need to take this as it is, as the truth. I need to become a better witness. And of course, too, at that time is when I reached out for help to a lot of people, and they pretty much denied me.
So what kind?
Because
like spiritual help, like you wanted someone to study with
not
you?
Not spiritual help, but no, not like that, but just as far as, as extracurricular activities, like if you guys are going to have a study group, or if you guys are getting together,
you wanted
because
to be included.
I wanted to be included. And I remember asking my one friend, just saying, like, if I was viewed as bad association, and if her parents did tell her to not associate with me, and she's like, yes, I'm not allowed to talk to you. Gotcha. So again, at that time, when you need the most help is when you're getting denied.
Oh, yeah, they're great at that. And I have to ask you, so what made you, all this went down, what made you say, I need to get right with, did you feel like you needed to get right with Jehovah? Did you feel like you needed to do certain things within the organization so you could fit in again and have friends? What was kind of the driving force? Or did you just feel like maybe because of the alcohol and drug issues, maybe you could, get straight in some way, by cleaning up your act or something? Like, how did you, what was the driving force behind that, the motivation?
I think it was just the shame that was put on me. And at that point too, yes, I did kind of start believing more and feeling regret and reproach on Jehovah's name.
Shame. Yeah. Look what you've done.
Yeah. So I felt like I had to clean the air and, fix my wrongdoings and be better.
Yeah. It's almost like another type of bullying, you know? It's almost one that we do to ourselves when we start taking on that shame. I mean, it comes from them. It comes from their messaging, but it's just everyone, it seems like most people who have had something happen have that moment where it's like, yeah, now I'm going to get right, or I'm going to double down, or whatever the case is. And then they end up talking to me. So it only went so well, apparently.
Right.
But so how'd this turn out for you, or what did you end up doing? How'd it go?
So like I said, my sister moved back into our house. And I remember my dad sitting us all down as a family and saying how things are really going to change around here. as far as communication and interaction. I remember like a week before one of the conventions, I wanted to go shopping for some suits, not suits, but ties and shirts. And my sister had to too, but at the time it was Disfellowshipped. I said, just come with me. We'll go to the mall together. It's not a big deal. And I remember getting in so much trouble for my dad and it wasn't even, he said, like, you guys were together. He said, what if someone saw you out together? What do you think they would think? And so that's when really things flipped too with my dad. He's a very angry person. He holds on to a lot of things that happened in his past, not stuff that he did, but things that other people did to him. Mm-hmm. And he's not one to let anything go. And I remember just the stuff that happened with Danny and her husband. Like 4 years later, he would still like bring it up and be like, I just cannot imagine how this happened. It's like, we've all moved on. Like, it's in the past. Like, this is hurting you more than anyone else. Like, you need to get over this. Like, honestly, man. And he was the type of, and he's the type of person who I just remember, even as a young child or younger child, always walking around on eggshells around him. Mm-hmm. I remember times when I had to ask him a question just if I could go do something. I would sit at like the bottom of the stairs next to the living room and being like, okay, in 1 minute, like, you're going to go ask him the question. And then that would pass. I'd be like, okay, just 1 more minute and you're going to go up to him and ask him. So there was always a fear of his reaction because he would get heated very quickly. He was never physically abusive. I don't think he was never mentally, but he was just a very scary man to be around.
Yeah, when you're walking on eggshells and you can't talk to someone, that's some mental and emotional abuse there. Based on their reaction. It sounds like he was a deeply unhappy person.
Yeah. And that was one reason too why I needed to quit working with him, is because being around him all the time, and he would just constantly ask me questions about what happened, what we did, and how dare he. And it's like, I just can't handle this anymore. And at this point, I was so socially uninept to where I'd be so afraid to be out in public or be in, space that wasn't comfortable. And so I quit working construction and got a job at just a local coffee house. And that's when things kind of, again, reopened up to me, because now I'm hanging out with people who aren't witnesses. I'm getting that social interaction. I can start kind of being and acting the way I want to be. Mm-hmm. And I became really good friends with, believe it or not, my boss, which we hung out outside of work, which was not allowed.
Oh, yeah.
She was a great friend of mine. And then did that job for about, I think, almost 2 years. And during that time, my sister, she got reinstated super fast. It only took her 6 months to get back.
Wow.
Yeah. So she then moved outside of the house back to the witness sister. Mm-hmm. So at that point, this is where okay, so I remember, what was the meetings on Thursday nights? Was it Theocratic or was that Tuesdays?
Theocratic Ministry School and Service Meeting. What was and service meeting, and then the other was the book study. It just depends
book
on
study.
How
it was book study.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some congregations did it backward.
I've been gone so long, I keep trying to, I've forgotten a lot of the terms.
That's a good thing.
So yeah, I remember Thursday night book study, and at this point too, I remember being applauded by one of the elders because at this point, my parents weren't going to meetings at all. They told me, like, we're so proud of you that you're making it here by yourself. And at this point, too, I was just like, well, I'm here to see my friends. Like, I don't care about meetings. And we got plans at Perkins or Applebee's afterwards. So
I'm just here to draw a nap on the floor.
yeah. Get some half price apps next.
Nice.
So yeah, still at this point in my life, my parents, they kind of, went back to their ways of not going to meetings or service. They were inactive. I mean, there's no way they were claiming time. And if they were lying, which we all did. I mean, let's be honest. But they were inactive. They weren't going to meetings. And it could, I mean, I feel like my mom, she was saying it's because of her health reasons. My dad, he just didn't want to go. And I remember one of the elders that was running the book study, the group that we met with, and he gave us each a yearly time report of our service and how many magazines and books we publish, all that crap. Oh, yeah. And he wanted us to send back the report, the time card with him, with short-term goals and a long-term goal. And I'm just like in my room. It's like 2 hours before the meeting and I still haven't written anything down, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, I need to turn this in. Like, oh my God. And so I go upstairs to my mom and I said, Mom, I don't know what to write down for this. And she's like, well, how about for your long time goal, just like write down you want to get baptized. I was like, sure, that sounds good to me. I'll do that. So for me, this wasn't even like something I wanted. And so I remember handing the time slip to him at the end of meeting, and he unfolds it and stops me and says, Aaron, hang on a second. He says, I just want to say I looked at your goals. He says, I'm really proud of you. And at that point in time, too, he said it was like Jehovah's Holy Spirit working with him. He's like, I feel like you wrote this down for a reason, and this got to me because I want to start a study with you.
Oh, that's so manipulative.
Yeah. So now I'm thinking, oh my God, Jehovah's working through him. He wants to study. I guess I'll have to do it. So let's see, I was 19 at the time, and we studied, I think, for a little over a year. Like, we studied for a long time. And I mean, worked my way finally up to getting baptized when I was 20. And at that point, I started beauty school. And I started beauty school in October, and I got baptized at the Special Day Assembly in September. So I remember riding along with a brother who studied with me, and he was concerned about my spiritual well-being, being that I was going to start school. And again, too, this is not like, 2-3 years. This is hair school, cosmetology. It takes 10 months. Like, I'm not living off campus or on campus, like driving from home, full-time student every day to this school. And I just remember him saying, like, he was so concerned because I'm freshly baptized, and that at this point in time, this is when Satan works his hardest, is because I'm not strong enough to handle the situations that are about to be thrown at me. And I remember saying to him, like, yeah, like, I'm really concerned because, I'm going to be hanging out with people who aren't witnesses every day. And, so I actually, at that point, I was in my mind spiritually strong and really was taking this seriously. So started school, and it was just a blast. The people who were in my class, because we were broke up into two groups because there were so many students, And everyone that joined the same time I did, we just got along great. There was like 14 of us, all different ages. I mean, like from 50 all the way up until 18. Like, we all
That's
just
how
got along great.
Satan planned it.
I know.
He picked those people, handpicked them at beauty school because he knew Aaron just got baptized.
Right. So started, right away. So this was October when I started. I was 20. So come December, turned 21. I'm so excited because I'm like, I can start drinking again, and going out with people. And I remember 2 of the students asked me, because they found out it was my birthday. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we would love to give you a birthday gift." And I said, "No, I'm sorry, you don't have to." And they're like, "Well, why not?" I'm like, "Well, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses." I said, "Well, I mean, if you got me a gift, it'd be bad on my part to refuse it. So if you duly feel like you need to, you can, but just so you know, I don't want one." And it was around the same time one of the other girls, it was her birthday, and she was going out downtown Minneapolis that night. And it was like the night before I had to take my big test to like continue moving on to be a cosmetologist. And my sister at the time worked at a hotel nearby my school, so I had her get me a room for free so I could get wasted downtown and then just go to the hotel instead of going back home. And one of the guys who was there, he was making moves towards, me in a sexual way. And I remember being very nervous because I didn't want to act upon it. And I didn't, because at the time I was still kind of freshly thinking I was, didn't want to be disfellowshipped if anything were to happen. So I remember one of the girls was taking photos that night, and I said, "Please do not post pictures on Facebook." And this was like right when I kind of joined Facebook. I said, "Don't post pictures." I said, "If anyone was to see these, or don't tag me." Well, she ended up posting pictures, not tagging me, but come to find out, one of my schoolmates was also a witness.
Oh.
But him at that time was in the process, I believe the elders were trying to meet with him for disfellowshipping him, but we had mutual friends through Facebook, so they saw it. My elders got notified. They contacted my dad. Nothing came about it because I made up some stupid lie, which as witnesses, we are the best liars.
Oh,
we learned how to start lying at a very young age, and we can put on a good old poker face.
Oh yeah, lying to yourself, lying to everyone around you. Yeah, we were taught how to lie at any cost.
So lied my way through that, and continued school, and I was house sitting for one of my cousins because they went to I think it was the convention, and they had a dog, so I was house sitting and dog sitting for them. So this was, I believe, in April or May after my birthday, only like 4 months after my birthday. Went out to meet some friends from beauty school and got arrested for drinking and driving. I blew like 0.01 or something, just very over the limit.
Right.
And so I was arrested, had one of my beauty school friends pick me up, stayed the night at her place, called my mom the next day. Well, she dropped me off at my cousin's, called my mom the next day. Ooh, and get this, the Sunday, because this was on Saturday night when I was arrested. That Sunday was the special Sunday talk that was given worldwide.
Oh.
So I missed that, which I was like, I'm a terrible human being. I missed the special talk.
Oh, yes.
So had my mom pick me up. I told her I had car issues. That was that reason why I missed meeting. It's in the shop. So she picks me up, and um, as she's driving us home, she asked me, well, what's wrong with your car? I immediately just like broke down and told her truly what happened. And this is why to this day, I have a very strong connection with my mother since childhood. She looked at me and goes, I got one of those before. Like,
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Like I said, she was a rebellious girl. Like I remember love hearing stories when I was young because it was so interesting to me that she didn't grow up in the truth, in quotations. Let me say that, the truth. And I just remember loved hearing stories about the stuff she would do, being so fascinated. Like, oh my gosh, mom, that's like so cool. So my mom's a pretty cool chick, to some degree.
Yeah. Well, let's say DUI's not cool. we'll throw that out there. But,
right.
But yeah, it sounds like she had some fun, and
Yeah,
it's not something that you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to, I don't know, be anything but a little witness and knock on doors and
right.
go to meetings and be a drone. So
I just remember too, my mom, because her father, my grandpa, was a severe alcoholic, and my mom was a big druggie. And I remember at the age of like 16, 17, she told me, she goes, I'd rather you smoke weed than drink if you're ever going to. I was like, what? Wait,
wow.
what? Really, mom? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay. She was the type of witness who wished they would legalize marijuana, because she's like, I miss smoking it. It's so much fun. And I would assume with her health, it would help her out tremendously medically,
Probably.
in a medical standpoint. But
wow, not many people have parents as Jehovah's Witnesses who can speak to any of that or talk about that in that way.
Yeah.
Wow. And it also sounds like you came by some of the issues with alcohol, honestly. I mean, it sounds like there might have been some running in the family there.
Yeah, we'll get to that soon.
Okay.
So yeah, got my DUI, was able to get an amazing lawyer that was able to bring down the charges to reckless driving. So, the cops just didn't handle it properly. But I just remember at that time in life, of course, since it's public news, it was in the paper, I had to meet with the elders, and they're asking me if it's a situation that I am having troubles with drinking. And of course I told them no. At that point too, my cousin, who I was house sitting for, he and his sister kind of disowned me, because they felt that I was bad association, which I was very, very close with them. Which too, one of them plays out to a story recently, which is very, very great, and I'm very happy about in life. But so they disowned me, and again, the whole kind of trickle down effect within the congregation happened, with them shutting me out when I wanted help and wanted to not be in this place in life right now of being secluded and abandoned. So which didn't happen. Continued with beauty school, having to get rides to school for my dad, which was a burden on him and his business. And then after graduation, my parents went through foreclosure and bankruptcy. At the same time. So I believe they got foreclosed on first and then went through bankruptcy. So we had about, I think it was between 6 and 8 months to still live in our house without them having, to pay the mortgage, because they weren't. we were able to find another witness family in another congregation nearby that they go to Hawaii every year for 4 months during the winter. And they were willing for us to move into their house while they were gone. So I'm now starting my new job in the salon I'm still working at currently. Going to a different congregation, which I was kind of excited about, but then got there and realized it's, there's like 3 people my age. One of them is already viewed as bad association. The other 2 are like zealot witnesses. Like, they're so highly looked upon. I'm like, oh God, I'm just going to fit in great here. Oh gosh. So at that time, that's when I started kind of drifting away slowly. And even for myself, I would say it was slowly. So we're living at this witness house for a few months. And then my parents were able to find a residence nearby that was a house that my father was working for as a contractor. He was renting it out. So we moved to that house, which was in the same territory as the congregation, the new one I was going to. And at that point, that's when things really got dark for me. My drinking got out of control. I was a very closeted alcoholic. I think people knew. I remember my dad, especially, multiple times getting very confrontational with me about him smelling it on my breath or coming out of my skin. Of course, I would just lie about it. And I mean, I was drinking about a half a liter of vodka a day. And not going to meetings, stopped going to meetings, not going out to service at all. And at that time too, I mean, mainly because I started having to work Saturdays every other week at my job. And I remember the only person at that time really concerned or asking me was my sister, who was the one that was disfellowshipped. And at that point, I was so upset with her because once she got back, she became a regular pioneer, strived very hard to become this amazing witness and achieved it. And for her to show judgment on my part, it was very hurtful. She was no longer my friend. She treated me as if I was her son in a way. I mean, always counseling me and always telling me I need to do better and what I need to be doing. And for me, that was it was hurtful. I was thinking at that, I just remember thinking at the time, like, you're the last one to be giving me counsel for what you've done in the past.
Yeah, it makes me think, sometimes some of the most judgmental Jehovah's Witnesses and the ones that are the preachiest about how you should live are the people who have done really bad things. So it's their way, I think, of absolving themselves is to, make themselves feel better by pointing out your flaws. So she just was on you about everything. Yeah. She wasn't really helping. She was just judging.
No. Yeah. So I remember us kind of growing apart at that point in life. And I just remember, every time we would hang out, we would just get in arguments. And because it was just her always throwing judgment on me for I would say the wrong thing, or do you really need to have that second beer? Or, I'm just like, who are you to say, like, just go away.
Yeah, judgment doesn't help someone who's struggling in that way.
Exactly. So, yeah, kind of start drifting away slowly, kind of pushing myself away in a way. As far as I remember, my parents, they did kind of grow close with the congregation, but they were still not really going to meetings. They were not going out in service, but they were at least trying to make friends with these people and go to the weekend events they would have. And I just remember I'd always deny it and be like, I have better things to do, or I'd rather hang out with my worldly friends. So I became very close with a girl from beauty school. We were hanging out all the time. I was sneaking out of the house and lying to my parents constantly. Again, I don't know how they believed what the shit would come out of my mouth. I remember one night I didn't get home till like 2 a.m, and they were like, where were you? And it so happened to be like my 5th year anniversary at my job. And I was like, they threw me a surprise party, which no job does that. Like, and why would you be out till 2 a.m. at a work surprise party? But they were like, oh, okay, cool. But yeah, I'm just hanging out with this one friend of mine. And so at this point too, since I kind of am living farther away from where I grew up, I kind of joined one of those online dating apps and started hanging out with this one guy from there who lived close by, and soon came to realize that his best friend was the owner of the house my parents were renting from.
Oh, wow.
So this is now an oh shit moment for me. Like, my parents don't know anything that I'm gay. Who knows to find out if he's going to tell this guy that my parents are renting from that he's hanging out with their son. So this became kind of like that fight or flight moment.
Yeah.
So I started beginning my process of leaving at this point now. Was able to get an apartment with my one friend from beauty school. And this is the one instance in life that kind of has troubled me the whole 7 years now that I've been disfellowshipped. Until recently now, starting therapy, I've been able to kind of release myself and move on from it. But for 7 years, it was me feeling so much guilt for the way I left my parents. So what had happened was, like a week before I planned my escape, my uncle, who, not blood uncle, but my blood aunt's husband, who was,
Oh, okay.
he was an elder at the congregation. I think he was even, what did the name they changed from PO, the presiding officer,
to coordinator of the body of elders?
Yeah.
The Kobe.
So I think he was that at the hall. And I just remember the times I would go to meeting, like right after the prayer, I would just get up and walk out. I'm like, I don't want to socialize. It's like, I'm going to go hang out with my other friends. And I remember one meeting, he ran out after me saying, like, you know, I just want to check up on you, seeing if you're doing okay. We'd like to have a meeting with you, have a shepherding call. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. So at this point now, I'm in so much fear of knowing at this point I'm gone, like I'm leaving regardless. But I didn't want to just walk away, because that's for some reason in me, I didn't want the elders or my parents to still be able to constantly be contacting me, asking me to come back, or
I understand
them visiting me. And then again, the fear of my father finding out that I'm gay, because he, again, being a very angry person, he's a very big homophobe and being very aggressive. I was afraid of my life. I could just see him beating me to the point of death. So met with the elders for my shepherding call, and my decision at that time, which I am now kind of in love with this story. So I chose to get disfellowshipped. I had done nothing wrong. I mean, besides being an alcoholic. I made up this whole story of being in a relationship with a woman, being sexually active, being in a relationship. My meeting with the elders, it was probably the quickest anyone has ever gotten disfellowshipped.
Well, yeah,
it was like 4 minutes long. They told me what was going on. They're like, "Are you going to change?" I was like, "No." And I just remember going outside waiting and hearing them. I'm like, "Yep, this is it. Like, thank God I'm going to be disfellowshipped."
I mean, it wasn't even a proper judicial committee, was it? Because a shepherding call usually is just two brothers. It's not three elders.
Sorry. Yes. So at this point, so at the shepherding call, I told them that I was fooling around with this woman and I'm in a relationship. So then we set up a meeting for my judicial committee.
Or judicial.
Yes. So, yeah, sorry. Thank you for...
That's all right. I was just like, wow, they disfellowshipped you on a shepherding call.
No, sorry.
That is fast.
So I had the shepherding call. We set up the judicial committee. Came home to my parents, told them what was going on, told them the lie that I'm seeing this girl sexually active. Of course, there's tears. They're telling me that I can change my ways. There's still hope. You know, I can ask reproach, or not ask reproach, be repentant. Right. And my dad then shares his story with me on how he was my age and he left the truth for a while. And it was the hardest decision he had ever had to make to come back. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay, this is my choice. So then I remember this too very vividly. It was like the Monday after, I think it was the Winter Olympics. I just remember it was like 2014, or 2013, 14, one of them. But I had started packing up my shit in my room and kind of slowly moving it to a friend's house. And again, don't know how my parents didn't notice me like hauling crap out the house, like luggage and suitcases, furniture. So the one day that I was like kind of ready to leave everything with my final goods, I had made plans with a good friend of mine who was one of my educators at beauty school and said, listen, this is what it's going to happen. Can we meet for breakfast just so I can kind of take my mind off on what, you know, is going to go down? So went to breakfast with her, told her my whole story, what was going on. And during that, my phone is blowing up. I've got my sister calling me, my mom calling me, elders calling me, other witness friends who are calling me. And at this point, I'm just like, okay, I need to go and like figure what's happening right now. And I remember calling my mom first, and she was just so distraught because she went into my room for whatever reason and just finding everything in the room gone. You know, except for like my bed and like big furniture items. But she was just like, what's going on? And I just told her, I said, you know, I'm just so afraid to be at home right now, especially with the way dad acts. I just don't want him to get violent with me. And she basically agreed. She's like, I understand. I know the way your father can be. You know, she just wanted to know I was safe, and I was. So was living with a friend of mine in the meantime before I moved in with the other friend who I got an apartment with, and met with my parents the day or the night before my judicial meeting. And they had their final words with me, and came back after the meeting and told them their decision and what was going to happen. And then I think I moved out. Well, I was already moved out, but I didn't see them again until the night of my disfellowshipping. And at this point, I didn't want to go to it. My dad kind of stressed very for the fact that I had to show up. Because
you're talking about the meeting where they announce it?
Where they announced it, yeah. Because I wasn't going to show, and my dad's like, you need to show. You need to show that, you know, ever in the future, if you're repentant, that, you know, you were there to handle the situation and you just didn't blow it off like it didn't mean anything. And here's the weird thing too. So not only was my judicial meeting, my uncle sat in on, which I always thought, like, you can't have family members sit on your judicial committee.
Yeah, pretty sure that's kind of a conflict of interest.
Right?
Yeah, did they have no other elders?
No, they had plenty of other elders.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
So I found that strange. And so this was a Thursday night meeting, and they didn't wait till the end of the meeting to announce I was disfellowshipped.
Oh, did they do it in the middle during the announcement?
In the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Like, my whole entire life growing up, I've always, you know, knew of them announcing that at the very end before the final prayer. And so now I'm having to sit during this meeting for the remainder hour with everyone like turning back, looking at me like, oh God, like, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, this is bullshit. I just wanted to get up right then and leave. I was so over it. And it was kind of great too, because after I'd found out I was getting disfellowshipped, one of my really, really good friends growing up in the congregation I grew up in, she was disfellowshipped when I was, I was over 21. So I think I was 20. She was disfellowshipped, when I was 22, so 2 years before I was. And I contacted her on Facebook and let her know I was getting disfellowshipped. And her first response was, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm so happy to hear that. Like, she's like, I'm so happy to see you. And at the time she's a musician, and she was doing gigs on Thursday nights at some local dive bar. And I told her this is the night they're going to announce it. She's like, you need to make plans with friends afterwards.
Absolutely.
Just to like, so I had picked up the one guy I was seeing at the time, and we went to go see her play. And yeah, it was, I mean, she's a great friend of mine still to this day. And like I said before, I've got tons of ex-witnesses and or ones that were disfellowshipped that are a part of my life.
Yeah. So now, how long ago was this that you were disfellowshipped? You say 7 years?
So I think so, because I just got a timeline yesterday on my Facebook, a memory, and I think it was a little over 7 years ago that I was disfellowshipped. Like,
wow,
literally 7 years in a week.
And so, what made you? Did you know that you could have disassociated, or did you feel that it was better to go out as far as the disfellowshipping, where it didn't look like it was your decision?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't really know that disassociation exists.
No, I knew it existed.
Gotcha.
But I don't know why a part of me wanted to have that disconnection from everybody.
Well, disassociation gives you the same disconnection.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of family members or ones still reach out to you.
Are you talking about fading?
No, I have a lot of friends who are disconnected that left when they were baptized, and their families still talk to them.
Oh, wow. No, I mean, Usually when you disassociate, you're kind of seen more as an apostate because you've basically disfellowshipped them. And that's interesting. I've never known anybody who is disassociated whose family's still associated with them.
So I think that's why.
Gotcha.
Because, I'm so familiar with having ones being disassociated, that they are still in contact. Like they still, I wouldn't say they hang out on the regular, but they still call, they still talk, they still see each other here and there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I just wanted that full disconnect of knowing that they couldn't, well, they could, but you know, they're going to feel bad about it, or however their feeling is on seeing me is going to be.
No, I understand. And I totally understand that. I mean, that's one of the reasons I disassociated. You know, it puts a bullet in it. You don't have to worry about people reaching out to you or elders, you know, watching what you post on social media. I mean, they can watch whatever they want that I post now, but they won't like it. You know, it's just, it ends some of that.
Yeah. Here's the thing too, even after being disfellowshipped, I know, again too, maybe this is just the congregation I grew up in, but I remember elders going to visit ones who were disfellowshipped just to check in on them to see how they're doing.
Yeah.
Like I had met in the 7 years, I think I've met twice with elders to just discuss. And then finally this last time I met with them, I said, I'm not interested. I'm gay. I'm not going to change. I know how you guys view and stance that. So I'm not interested. And I think they finally got the hint now, because now my parents don't even send me the invitation for the memorial anymore.
Oh, okay. All right.
They used to for the first like 5 years. And I think I went the first year I was disfellowshipped to the memorial. And then after that, I was like, yeah, no, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's if you really want them to not talk to you ever again, start a podcast and start talking about Jehovah's Witness stuff.
Yeah.
They'll never talk to you again.
Right.
Don't have to worry about that too much. Yeah, so okay, so you ended up leaving kind of, you know, really of your own accord, because though, I mean, let's not discount the PTSD inducing doctrine and narrative that, you know, is behind that. You know, that makes people kind of activate that fight or flight and want to leave sometimes. So you said that 5 years went by before you kind of woke up, or, you know, started waking up more mentally. What helped you to wake up? What was kind of the moment or the moments where you started to?
I think it's your podcast.
Oh, really? This one or this JW Life?
Yeah, no, your Shun podcast.
Oh, awesome.
So, like, you know, Michael, I do hair. I work in a salon Tuesday through Saturday in the salon. And then I'm also a regional educator for a hair color company. So Sunday, Mondays, I travel, typically spending 4 hours a day in a car. So I needed something to listen to. And I still remember, I don't remember where I was traveling from, but I had like a 3-hour drive. And for some reason, I just typed in Jehovah's Witnesses into the podcast search, and you were the first thing that popped up. And I don't remember whose story it was, but it was just an amazing story. And I think ever since then, just hearing other people's, what they dealt with and what they are going through and have gone through, and I think just too over time as well. My one good friend, she's a huge reader, and I think haven't like therapists and people scientifically proven that it takes like a good 4 to 6 years for your brain to like really revert to what the cult has done to you.
Right.
So I think too, I mean, with your help from the podcast and people's stories, I think it was just time overall that really changed things. So I remember for the first, like, probably 2 years after being disfellowshipped, I was still very believing what they taught. I spent a lot of nights in fear, thinking that I had sinned against Jehovah's Holy Spirit and there was no saving my soul, even after Armageddon. for me making up this huge lie of getting disfellowshipped. So I, again, too, got very heavily into not drugs, but alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Began very heavy drinking. And at the time, too, so this girl that I was living with from beauty school, she wasn't paying rent. So we only lived in the apartment for like 5-6 months. Got evicted. So here I am, freshly disfellowshipped. Don't hardly have anyone I know or can talk to. Getting evicted, freaking out about where I'm going to live. And I think, too, she was fed up with my drinking habits. Not that I wasn't paying rent on time. I think just, I don't know, her dealing with me.
Sure. Yeah, still living together. It's not just about money.
But the thing is, too, it's like when I would drink, I would just go in my room and lock my door. Like I would seclude myself. So it's not like I'd be like out there picking fights with her. Like
yeah.
I would just turn on Netflix and drink. But so we got evicted and I had like literally 3 days to find a place to move to. So reached out to this person on Craigslist, moved in with him, and he was just a trash pit. His house was like a zoo. It was so gross. Didn't have my own bathroom because the cats used it as their litter box. He's had like 4 cats, a dog, 3 turtles. Like it was just gross.
And one Aaron.
And one Aaron. It was like, what's going on in my life?
Yeah.
So then one night, ran into a girl from beauty school who I wasn't even close with. And just started this amazing, beautiful friendship with her. We are still close to this day. We lived together after I moved out with him. I lived with her for almost 2 years. And then she got pregnant, so she had to move closer to her parents. And then, again, I had nowhere to go to because at this point, I still didn't have really any family. I do have some family members that never studied or became witnesses, but growing up never really seeing them or talking to them, like I don't even think I had their phone numbers, so I didn't know how to reach them or why would I go to them when I need them, but it's like I'm a charity case right now.
Right.
So lived with her and then moved in with another friend of mine for about, I think it was 2 years too. So I'll just get to that. I moved in 7 years. I've moved 12 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, through all of this, obviously you've grown and now it's really cool. You were helped by the podcast. Now your story gets to help other people on the podcast. So that's
I hope
kind
so.
of serendipitous. It all comes full circle. But what about your life now? Do you feel like your past obviously you've talked about being in therapy and such. So have you found that to be helpful? Are there ways that the past is still impacting you that you care to share?
Yeah. So I moved in. Sorry, I'm going to kind of take it back a little bit because there's still some other things I have to go through.
Okay.
So after I moved into another house I found on Craigslist, this guy was renting out his basement. That's when I got to the lowest point in my life. I was drinking so much, especially on weekends, showing up late to work, ill, and I remember I got to the point where I wanted to kind of stop drinking, but don't have health insurance. So I was like, well, I need to detox, but I can't go to a facility because I can't afford it. So I'm like, I'm just going to do this at home, which was the worst decision of my life. Tried to do some research about what to do when you're detoxing.
Right.
And found a medication that you can take to help with it, which I somehow had. And got to the point to where I woke up one morning and I was hallucinating and I was hearing voices. I was going through psychosis, which is, I don't know if it was from the medication that I was trying to take to help with the detox, but I know it can also happen with withdrawal from alcohol.
Sure.
So I literally thought the renter of who I was living with was trying to plant drugs in my room. I thought he had a hidden security camera in my room. Just hearing all these crazy voices. And I left one night from the house because I knew they were calling the cops on me to arrest me, but none of this was happening. Called a dear friend of mine, Yvonne, who actually, she's not a witness, so she's fine about me saying her name. When I didn't have anywhere to live for some period of time, she took me in. She's kind of like my mama, my second mama.
Mm-hmm.
And called her and just told her what was going on. Well, she came and picked me up. I suffered a seizure, and I was outside leaving the house because I thought they were calling the cops, left barefoot in the dead middle of winter. Had a seizure, hit my head on the sidewalk, lost my glasses. So she's calling me like, where are you? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, can you find your way back home? I said, I can try, but I don't even know what street I'm on or where my house is. Was able to find my way back home and got to the bathroom, and I'm just covered in blood from hitting my head. And she knew at that time, like, what I was dealing with, that she had to, like, kind of trick me or be on my level. Like, I can't tell him. But she ended up taking me to the hospital. She told me I was just going to come over for a sleepover. So she took me to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 3 nights and was able to recover and moved out of that house into one of my good friends. I'll just call her A. She's one of my earlier ex-witness friends that was Disfellowshipped that I reached out to.
Mm-hmm.
Moved in with her, and then she decided later on to move in with her girlfriend at the time, leaving me again, nowhere to live. And at this point, I've kind of started a relationship with one of my uncle and aunts. It's my mom's younger brother. When my mom was studying, he was away at war. So he came home after fighting, and he's a Marine. And he came back home, and my mom and all her siblings were trying to get him to study, and he's like, who the fuck are you guys? Like, this is not who I left when I, remember you as. So he never studied or wanted to be a witness. And I have been doing their hair kind of over the years here and there. And kind of my aunt was the first one that I came out to. And she pretty much told me she already knew at a young age that I was, and that she was so worried for me as my well-being of knowing how the witnesses are, what I was going to struggle through with life. So she's an amazing woman, and I love her dearly. So I moved in with them, and just this last June was able to purchase my own condo. So now I'm living by myself. So I've progressed and moved on. It's kind of crazy. I've gained a lot of family members. I know you have so many people on the Shunned podcast, but I guess I won't share their names, but they are cousins of mine. And actually, he's the one cousin that they disowned me and shunned me when I was house sitting for them during the time I got my DUI. And she had reached out to me, I think, it's been 2 years now. All of a sudden I get this message on Facebook from her saying how her and her husband are leaving the organization. They don't believe with how they're handling the child molestations. They don't believe in it anymore. And they would love to meet with me. And Um, this is one thing too that kind of always touches me, because for struggling for so long, for 7 years, just with living situations, and
Yeah.
she told me in the letter, she was like, we admire you for being such a strong person. And to hear that, it just kind of takes you aback, because it's like, I'm not a strong person. It's been a long, hard road. And I mean, now that they're a part of my life, they've got 3 beautiful kids, and I spend so many weekends with them. So I've definitely gained more than I've lost, I would say.
That's awesome, man. That's beautiful. And let's say courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid and doing something anyway. Being strong doesn't mean that you don't have moments of weakness, or you don't have problems. Being strong is having problems and doing stuff anyway, and here you are. I mean, you have woken up, you've gotten out, you've done what you had to do to survive from circumstances that were less than ideal, and you're in therapy, you're taking steps to get healthy and do healthy things. You bought a condo. I mean, that's something to be proud of. I know that
Yeah.
that it's being proud of ourselves is not something that
No.
we're used to as Jehovah's Witnesses. You're not supposed to ever feel good about anything you do, because then you wouldn't need them. But yeah, you've done a lot of good things, and so I hope, you've definitely demonstrated your strength in all of this. So
Yeah, that's one thing too. Like, especially the one family members and friends too. They're like, "We're so proud of you. Like, you got your own place." And like, you guys really shouldn't be proud of me. Like, I don't know how this happened, to be honest. It just kind of fell in my lap in a weird way. But
sometimes it's just things happen when the opportunity is there, the timing is right, and you were ready for it.
Yeah.
So that's good too.
Yeah, I don't know where I stand too as far as believing in anything, but I feel like there definitely was a higher power that was helping me and kind of putting things in my lap and making it work in a way that, I mean, because I had so many bumpy roads just in this last, just trying to get the condo, and it just kind of fell into place seamlessly. And I was like, okay, who up there is helping me out right now? Because I need to know. Something is. I don't know if it's the Wiccans or the witches, but maybe.
It's got to be the witches, right? Those books, you call back to your books from earlier.
Yeah.
So, you're out now. I'm guessing you've had no contact with your family, your parents, I should say, other than them inviting you to the memorial.
Only time. Yeah. So my mom, for the first few years, always would send me letters, just asking how I was doing. And then, of course, the Watchtower and Awakes, which I never read. My sister, she got into a really bad car accident. She was driving home one night, and a horse had gotten out from its pasture, and she hit it in the middle of the night.
Oh, goodness.
And got into a very bad accident. My mom kind of reached out to me, told me about that. So I texted my sister, and she told me that she didn't want my father gave her strict instructions to not let me know about it, because they didn't want me to contact her. Mm-hmm. So the other time I reached out to her, she got married, not this last January, but the one before. And I wasn't invited to the wedding, of course, which for me as a witness, I feel like weddings, funerals, things like that, you should still be included. I remember going to weddings growing up with members who were disfellowshipped in the family that showed up. So again, that just could have been our congregation or the area. But so for me, I was contacted my mom a week before she got married, and just kind of told her I was hurt that she didn't invite me. And so my sister reached out then afterwards, saying that she was sorry and that she didn't want to invite me because she didn't want to be hurt by the fact that if she sent out an invitation and I didn't show. And I just kind of told her, I said, listen, you're my sister. Like, I would love to be here. And she said, the only fact I'm going to allow you to come to the wedding is that if down the line in the future you change your mind and come back to Jehovah, I wouldn't want you to have missed out on that. My only stipulation, though, was that I had to sit in the second hall, and right after the prayer had to leave immediately.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, I got to be treated like a pariah.
Yeah.
Well, so if you could say anything to your family and friends that shun you, is there anything you would like to say?
Just want to say I'm sorry for them. Sorry that they're stuck in this cult that's completely controlling who they are and who they really could be, and that they're missing out on so much to a family member that has achieved so much himself and would love to share his experiences. And yeah, I feel sorry for them. I've gotten to that point now where I feel bad for everyone who is still a part of it. And I know there's ones that physically cannot make that step.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess anyone out there who is listening to this that is still PMO or is PMO, just know there's always hope for leaving. There's definitely going to be struggles along the way, but there's going to be struggles regardless in life. And, I just hope that if they do, that they have the support that I had and have to this day.
Beautifully said. So you're out now. What do you like about your new life? What do you like about the life you have today?
Honestly, I think just from who I was at a young age, just knowing that I can make connections and friends with people because I have no judgment for anybody. I love meeting new people, and that's the one fact with both my jobs. I get to travel, I get to meet new people. I've made so many great relationships with people out of state that I could at any point call and be like, hey, I'm coming to visit. Can I stay with you? It's a big world out there, and you got to experience that. Life's short.
That's such a contrast to the tiny, very small life as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. When you get to be yourself and you get to connect with just anyone who comes across your path, that's a beautiful thing. So do you have any dreams, anything that you're wanting in particular, maybe at some point to make of your life?
Well, I think somewhat like you, I would love to start some type of group or any type of a place to where people can come for help and feel comfortable and know they're not alone. Mm-hmm. I think with so much that's going on right now with news and the media about the witnesses, as far as with, Leah Remini doing her special, the A&E, I think there's more progress that can be made and more light to be shown on this cult that is so disgusting and so harmful to people. I would just love to be part of a movement to help ones and make a change.
Oh, you're on part of a small one right now. So, what about, personally, do you have anything that you want to do for you? You want to be hairstylist to the stars, or I don't know.
No, I'd be too afraid and too nervous to do. I mean, just from the hair shows I've done, platform work is too scary for me. I mean, I guess just as far as my teaching job, my education that I do, maybe moving up into that. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. I wish I was one to really strive and set goals for myself, which I don't. I kind of just take things as how they go and
There's
see what makes
lack
out
of
of
goals
it.
doesn't
But
mean you can't be happy. I mean, it sounds like,
yeah,
ultimately success is measured by happiness. And it sounds like you've kind of found that in your life now. You've got that happiness. You're connecting
yeah,
with people and doing
yeah,
things you love. And
yeah. I think too, especially just, being able to create and make so many new memories with family members who I've lost so much time with, which is one thing I hold a lot of resentment for to my parents is, them not having them be a part of my life growing up. And they are such wonderful people. And, yeah, I mean, I just want to create so many more memories
that's awesome.
of happy things to look on. And, that's the one resentment that part of when you're dying is you wish you would have done more. And
Yep.
I don't want that to be one thing for me, is spending time wishing I could do things. So just try to make the most of everything. And
Well, it sounds like you've got a beautiful life ahead of you then. As always, I want to thank everybody that's brave enough to get on here and tell their story, so that they can help those that listen. And I hope that in listening back to it, you get a different perspective and can give a little more weight to what you experienced and find some more healing. If you're listening, you can support today's guest by leaving a comment of support on the website at shunnedpodcast.com on the episodes page. While there, you can find the date for the next Shunned Recovery Project online meetup, reach out for one-on-one coaching to get moving on your new life, or buy some merch and rep the show. Visit my other site, xjwhelp.com, for helpful videos and a downloadable roadmap of life after leaving, as well as resources like meetups, books, and a lot more. Join the Facebook support group called Shun Podcast. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more as Shun Podcast. Leave a review on iTunes or other podcast apps for both this and the original podcast, This JW Life, so that more people can find these stories and get the help that they need. Donating equals loving. So if you love these stories and find them helpful, please support the show at patreon.com/shunned. And there's some rewards there, and it really means a lot to me to see that people support what I'm doing, and it helps me to do more. The theme song for today is No Hell Yet by Fair Voyeur. And as I end all episodes, love others, do no harm, and go be happy.
We'll curse God.